All right, ladies and gentlemen, again, I woke up this morning to the sad news that Donald Trump is, in fact, still alive. It's the most anticipated obituary in human history, but it has not occurred yet. Hopefully, it's pre written and just ready to be inserted. Thanks for joining us. I'm Mark Hayes, and I'm pissed off again. Here we are with another exciting edition of Two Men in Black and White, an honest conversation. They're eating the cats and dogs, and now we want them to eat the tariffs. That's what Donald Trump says. Walmart and other big chain retailers should just eat the price hikes. Why raise prices? That's right, because it's convenient for him. Let's bring in my partner, Brock Ganeles, joining us from the beautiful Hudson River Valley, where they're still wearing hats and scarves.
It is kind
All
of
the
nice out
time
there.
ago, so it's all good. Brock, what say you when Jamie Dimon comes out and says, hey, the market's too complacent when it comes to these tariffs and these deficits that we're looking up? Oh, by the way, Donald Trump on pace to run up another deficit at record number. I mean, he's only been in there for 3 months. 4 months. What do we go? Jeez, what's going to happen in 4 years, my friend?
Yeah, today's market scare was debt levels and the estimate that the new budget would add 3 trillion to the debt. So remember those remember when the Tea Party masqueraded as an organization that gave a shit about it was all about the debt. It all started with the Tea Party. That was MAGA, pre-MAGA, when they had a different name. When it was no, it wasn't racism. No, it wasn't demographics, wasn't need to deport brown people. It was all about the debt. Here we are 20 years later and it's 3 trillion in the debt, and you have the spokeswoman, what's your name, Levitt, out saying that, oh no, this new budget won't raise the debt at all. So that was today's little economic scare. But back to the tariffs. You know, I mean, we love our capitalism here in America, right? And capitalism means public companies are for profit.
Right.
So when Donald Trump changes the economic dynamic for the largest retailer in the world, and their job is to generate a shareholder return, I mean, does the management actually have the luxury to say, oh, we're just going to be less profitable as a business? I don't think that CEO stays in his job, right? Because that stock goes down. So that CEO's job is to be profitable, and now tariffs have been dropped on his desk. So he's going to turn around and pass it along to the consumer. Anyone who knew anything, really, you didn't have to be an economics major to understand this, right? Just sort of anyone who wakes up and isn't an absolute moron realizes that when the tariffs get enacted, it ultimately works its way to higher prices for the consumer. And the fact that Walmart just acknowledged the basics because they're a for-profit public company in a capitalist society. I mean, they're doing what they're going to do. I don't love Walmart, but they're doing what they're going to do.
You know, it's funny. I got stuck in the car this weekend with my mom. God bless her. She loves the news. So we had on, can't even remember if it was CNN or MSNBC. I know it was one of those two, though, because there wouldn't be anything else on satellite radio that I would listen to besides the Comedy Channel and the hip hop stations. But nevertheless, they actually did polls and surveys of CEOs and companies, large companies, to ask them if the tariffs were going to trigger hiring, investment, growth, profitability, like Donald Trump said they would. And there were 0%
Yeah, I was
who
going to say the answer
responded.
to those three is no, 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 and no.
There were 0% who said, oh, yeah, we're going to start, hiring more people, like Donald Trump said. Look, we've got a president with a 500 credit score. Right? So are we surprised that our credit rating has been downgraded by Moody's? But see, here's the thing. Remember this, Brian. A large swath of the country, just like you said, unless you're an absolute moron, they don't understand how that impacts Main Street. That impacts your credit card rates, that impact your mortgage rates. Anytime you borrow, it's going to impact you and make it more expensive.
But when they go to Walmart, where America shops, right, particularly the red states, right, they're just going to see higher prices, I think, starting next week. And yeah, you can lie and bullshit your way through, and we'll get to Medicaid in a second. But just like Trump's trying to tell people the price of eggs have come down, like you can't bullshit someone who's got eggs in their cart and they're putting it on that little conveyor belt and it's getting red, right? They see the number in front of them, right? You can't just lie about the price of gas. You go to the pump, you put the thing in, the wheels are spinning.
Where's the
The
button?
price, it's not a buck 98, right? You're sitting at 329 on like a national average or something like that. So yeah, you could just keep lying and lying. And the only reason Trump went after Walmart is because he knows for that day it made him look bad. So he tried to bully Walmart into not doing something that made him look bad. He didn't care about the American people. He doesn't really care about the consumer. He doesn't care about Walmart. He doesn't care about the shareholders. Doesn't care about the economy. But he worried for that moment. You know, he has that reptilian sense. For that moment, he was losing some traction, so he yelled at Walmart. But Walmart will just have to steamroll through because they're a for-profit company in a capitalist society. So they're not like media companies that are going to cower to Trump because they're trying to cut deals, which we'll get to in a second as well. I mean, Walmart's selling to everybody in every community in the country. They can't eat the tariffs, and they
Right.
won't eat the tariffs.
Right. And the thing about it is, he said on day one, prices go down. You know, none of his campaign promises has he lived up to. None of them. And in the meantime, while we're having this discussion here at home, right? Keep your eye on this thing over here. Don't look away. This guy's over in the Middle East cutting deals with terrorist states who support Hamas, right? And he's arguing about keeping a 400 million gift, but you know what? They don't want anything in return. They just love the Trumpster. They just want to give him a $400 million gift. And then, by the way, we've got this other $3 billion, meme coin purchase, which is worthless, by the way. All the experts say the coin is
Yeah, of
worthless.
course, worthless. There's no value to it. It's what the
Yeah,
next person will pay for it. Yeah,
right.
but on the side, they're getting advanced technologies because right behind Trump comes Bezos and the other technology guys to do AI deals and the like, and so they're getting advanced weaponry. So there's weapons deals that comes behind it. So they're paying. Those governments are paying for their ability to stay in power, right? So they're not doing it out of the goodness of their hearts. They're getting you know in essence, they're enhancing their power dynamic. So they're paying out of company coffers they're as corrupt as Trump is, right? It's all corruption. It's circular corruption.
You're right. And it continues. And again, we talked a little bit about this. We touched on it yesterday, but the longer he's allowed to just stick his middle finger up at the system and institutional norms, the more difficult it's going to be to get him out
Yeah,
of there.
Mark, we're beyond norms, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
they're ignoring court rulings. So now we're on the constitutional crisis tightrope, right? Where
Oh, yeah.
they haven't totally Project 2025 hasn't totally just thrown our constitution out the window yet. So they're just trying to toe the line just enough to keep it from being a crisis while they ignore the courts, right? I mean, none of these deportees have been brought back to the US, even though it was mandated.
Right.
Deportations haven't stopped, so they're playing a game. But you're right, yeah. The more complete they're betting on our complacency, particularly white America, right? They're betting on our complacency because the
Yeah.
next right behind tariffs now is the budget. The budget's it's a fucking joke. I mean, the New York Times came out with a headline like this may hurt the lower percentage earners.
Nay.
May. Come on, we've been known this shit since fucking November. Now the
Right.
reality is coming in. Of course, the budget is as advertised. It's cutting Medicaid,
Yep.
although they're lying about it. It's
Millions of.
raising the debt significantly, and almost all the benefits are going to the point. Oh,
But Brock, you know what really pisses me off, especially here in the South, where education has suffered probably more than any place else in the country. I'm talking about this lower third of the country, from Texas on east, right through Florida and the Carolinas. Education has never been one of the selling points of the South. All right. We have some fine, colleges and universities in the South. But let me tell you something. I mean, what was South Carolina? 49th, Georgia 48th. We're all in the 40s, all these southern states. This bill right now will make life so much more difficult for children in America. We're going to be living like third world children in America, with SNAP benefits being cut, with Medicaid being cut. How are kids supposed to learn when they can't even stay healthy, when they can't get a good meal? When, like, why do you want to hurt the children of the United States, of the future of the United States of America, just to enrich yourself? Have you no moral compass? Look, that's
It's not
rhetorical.
all the children, Mark. It's not all the children. It's black, brown,
But
and poor. Now, the rural white poor gets thrown in there. They're kind of just getting thrown on the scrap heap with black and brown. And they'll be the ones making noise because they're the ones that are shocked by all this, right? Because they're
right,
MAGA. They're MAGA.
right,
And they're like, whoa, we're being treated like minorities. So, that's what we saw in those town halls. But let's face it, the American government doesn't care if those people, black people, black kids get educated. Right, because in all those states that you talked about, you will also have all these voucher programs, right? So it's even less money is going to go to the public schools. More is going to go to these elite private schools, and it's just going to be even more bifurcated education system. But that plays into Project 2025. That plays into Doji, Musk, all those tech guys. That's about elites, who's rich. It all goes back to who's running this place, and it's the wealthiest of white people, and they're snookering the poorest of white people, but those poorest of white people have played along because they love the racism. And we're just going to see how long they roll along loving the racism as more gets taken away from them. Because we know rural hospitals get crushed with this Medicaid bill.
so it is. It's quite interesting. I try to keep you abreast on what's happening on the black side of things. And I heard an interesting comment from one of the lightning rods in the black community. His name is Dr. Umar Johnson. And if you look on the Breakfast Club or some of the African American talk shows and influencers often have him on. He's a historian of black history and likes to talk about the changes that needs to occur. He is probably what you would call a black segregationist. He doesn't believe in interracial dating or marriage, and he's been very critical of especially professional athletes, institutional racism. He is never afraid to speak up on it. And he said something that really caught my ear, and I just happened to hear it, and I didn't check the date on when the video was from. But he said that there will never be change or a revolution through elections. He said the only way you can affect real change is through a revolution, which may include violence. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, yeah, man, if we could change things through the election, things would be a whole lot different. But we don't even know if our elections are any good anymore. So what do you think about that? There has to be a revolution because you've been calling for something similar.
Well, number one is I think, okay, I'm going to lead off by disagreeing because we're having massive change in our country right now that happened through an election. Okay, right. So the Trump Project 2025, coup that's going on right now leads to the argument that change can happen through an election if you steamroll all the norms and then decide and basically decide you're going to stop listening to the Constitution, and you have a complacent enough public citizenry, which we happen to have, which we happen to be, right? Let's include ourselves in it. On the second hand, yeah, big changes tend to happen through revolutions, and not many revolutions go on without any violence. I mean, there's some violence. If you think about when Ukraine had a revolution against their corrupt Russia-based, Russia-planted leader, 10 years ago or so. They were out in the streets for a long time, but then there was some violence, right? There was a moment. The police came in. They tried to push them off of the streets. The citizenry fought back. They wouldn't leave the streets. And then all of a sudden, the military and the police were like, why am I beating up on my brothers, my cousins, on the people I actually agree with? They turned on leadership. And you know what? And things change and end in a heartbeat, right? Nothing happens, and then everything happens in a moment, right? So I think we're going to have to be on the streets. I think it's going to have to look like a revolution and look like a rebellion.
Right.
I think there'll inevitably be some violence, but I hope a similar dynamic happens where the authorities who are called in to, quote, deal with the problems on the streets make the decision that they don't think the problem is in the streets. They think the problem is in the leadership. And once the authorities, once the enforcement mechanism walks away from leadership, leadership's done. They've lost all their validity. If Trump can't be commander in chief because the troops don't listen to him, well, he can't be president anymore. And then even his supporters, then, enough of them will turn. Some of them will turn. Self-interest will move them in a different direction, or we'll have some sort of stalemate.
Right, right. And so, what do you think about I believe it was Mad Dog Mattis who came out and said, one of our storied military leaders that came out and said very strongly disagreed with this military birthday parade of Trump's, and he was very critical of the possibility of having this parade. So remember, he was the defense secretary. He was the
Joint Chiefs.
retired Marine Corps general.
Yeah, was he Joint Chiefs? I forget exactly what job he had, but it was a big one.
Yeah, he was the Marine Corps general, defense secretary. He just talked about the strength of the union, and he came out with a really nicely written, patriotic statement about why we don't show our military, you know, just girth. We don't because we don't need to.
Okay.
We don't need to.
I'm there with you so far. I'm there with you. So basically, he provided us a strongly worded letter.
Another one of those.
So I ask, as we both asked, we welcome him. We've nominated him to stand at the front of the protest on June 14th in Washington, D.C. I think many veterans and many of the rest of us would gladly stand arm in arm with him, hopefully white and black. America would stand with them and say, no, we don't do military parades. And that's why there's millions of us here in D.C. flooding the streets, because we don't want the tanks rolling. We would prefer to have the streets populated with our people than our military, and shut it down. Freedom from fascism, shut it down, rally. General Mattis is welcome to lead that parade. I also saw a quote today from John Kelly. I don't know how old it was, but highly critical of Trump. He's been reticent to speak or anything, but John Kelly certainly welcome to stand right next to General Mattis at the front of the line.
Yes.
So I like the letters, I like the words, I like the sentiment, but as David Letterman of all, the one comedian we left out of our potential leadership group, came out today strongly in support, right behind Bruce Springsteen, came out today saying it's not enough for us to just talk about how mad and upset we are about the direction Trump's taking the country. What are we actually going to do about it? So it's interesting to see Letterman out there saying that. Nice Midwestern guy.
And that continues with our, sentiment of it needs to be a non-traditional leader to lead the
and we want these white leaders piling on top of each other. But I like the move. If there's some movement in the messaging, I like to see the messaging is starting moving to a action-oriented messaging, not just a we're so upset messaging. Right? The lawyers are in the courtrooms, right? So like Mark Elias and his group has done their job. They're fighting the fight in the courtrooms. It's the people that haven't done our job yet. We've bitched and screamed, we've collaborated, we've done some quiet walks down Fifth Avenue and other cities. Some, the most aggressive protests have been at Tesla dealerships. But June 14th today. So I'm glad Mattis is, strongly worded letter. I like John Kelly's words. I love Letterman piling on top of some other, non-traditional, popular white Americans who have a platform and are using it.
Yep.
I still look for Taylor Swift and the Kelseys. And I love the fact that Donald Trump, the Mad King, in the middle of the night, went after Beyonce and Oprah. Somehow we had Bono in there, but Bono's not American, so I didn't ask for him to come and fight our battle.
Yeah.
He fought his for like Ireland and the like, because Beyonce's now been thrown into the battleground. I feel like that pulls Jay-Z into the equation in the same way that I feel like Travis Kelsey's in the equation, because when the mad king moron is taking shots at your loved one, you would think in the man's world, the manosphere, that the hubby boyfriend would be real quick.
Right.
To
Especially when
protect.
Beyonce's got a lot of ears listening to her on the Cowboy Carter tour. So apparently, she said Chicago was amazing with one of her last stops on the tour, and they're getting amazing crowds. So I would be shocked. Number one, if Jay-Z is not on tour with her, to come out and say, "Hey, yo, man, you cannot be coming after my wife." Right? This is not some boyfriend girlfriend thing. This is wifey right
Wife,
here.
yeah, a couple of
No,
kids. Wife with a couple of kids. Yeah.
right? Jay-Z from Brooklyn, right? You're not supposed to allow anyone to disrespect your wifey. So come on out with it, my friend. And let's push back. But we need all of this because the media is no longer the fourth estate, right? We can't count on the media. We got another huge departure from CBS News. Wendy McMahon announced her resignation. That follows, if you'll remember, the executive producer, Bill Owens from 60 Minutes, who left, with their pissing match with the Trumpster because he lost journalistic independence, right? Like, and but Brock, again, it gets back to capitalism that we all love, right? You got to be able to make $1.
Yeah. Well,
right?
CBS has a deal they want to do, and you can't get deals through unless Trump blesses them. So basically, Trump has to be bribed. I mean,
Right.
that's going on. I mean, CBS is dead to me. They're now in the pile of shit with CNN and, of course, Fox and Newsmax and OANN and whatever that station is, of stations that I just will never watch. 60 Minutes gone, not watching it. Just don't believe in it. If the senior management aren't staying on board, I'm not going to believe in the integrity of any of the newscasting. So to me, CBS is done. MSNBC, I'll take a peek at Lawrence O'Donnell once in a while. Now that Rachel's not on, I still call for Rachel Maddow to resign and start her own network, especially now. I mean, she gave it the 100 days, so maybe she wanted that platform and she used it well. But now that she's not on every night, I urge her to step away and to start her own network.
And hook up with Midas Touch. I mean, she could hook up with Midas Touch and they could be
Get the band back together, rope Joy in.
and just go kill it. Because we already saw Katie Fang become a part of the Midas Touch team. So they've added another quality journalist, attorney, right? An extraordinary legal mind. So they've got some real heavy hitters on the Midas Touch network, and they're touching a lot on the Jeffrey Epstein list and what happened there and Donald Trump's wording of what exactly happened to Epstein, because you got Patel and Bongino kind of backpedaling now, saying before they were all about the conspiracy theory when President Biden was in office. Now they're saying, oh, no, it was a suicide. Yeah, I mean, I know what a suicide is when I see one. But these two clowns, right? Former podcast hosts elevated to cabinet positions. Like, how does that work in the real world?
But sadly, we can't believe anything that comes out of DOJ, FBI, and the like. I mean, there's no rule of law in America because they're all just playing to Trump. So their answer is going to be what pleases Donald Trump in the moment, because they just, I guess, want the power that comes with it. And maybe they're all corrupt and making money on the side off of this, and or they're white supremacy zealots and they just believe in the movement, right? And there's a lot of those, right? Project 2025 acolytes who are in these jobs now that are just loving it. Like Stephen Miller, he might not be getting rich, but he's loving the fact that we're just sweeping brown people out of the country, right? This is like he's getting his dream. So it's one of those three, right? Either the power, corrupt, money, or just, true believers. True believers where race is like so embedded in them. I mean, Stephen Miller,
So again, we call for everyone to get to the nation's capital on the Trumpster's birthday and shut down this military parade on the 14th. We're calling for a Freedom from Fascism rally. That's our call to action in D.C. on the 14th. Still waiting to hear from some of these top artists on whether or not
they got to pile on each other. But I think, Mark, the more I think about it, and the more we talk on a daily basis, like I think we also have to keep we have to start exerting more pressure on
Yes.
high-profile Americans
Yes.
to not be silent. The silence is deafening. If you have a platform, you
Use
owe
it.
it to the country to use it. And you know what? If you don't believe it, if you're a Trumpster, tell us that. We want to
Yeah.
know. But there's no just, oh, I'm not political or that's not it's your lane. You're an American citizen. It is your lane. There is no middle anymore. Like silence is complicity. You need to come out and use your platform. And sorry that you live in a day and age in America where you have to be this way. But it's not the first time, right? In the Civil War, people had to pick a side. It was north-south, right? It was two armies. There was nowhere to sit on the side. In the Revolutionary War, you were with the British, you were with the rebels, right?
Yeah.
Well, here we are. It sucks that this is happening in our lifetime, but we're at a point in time where you have to not only pick your side, but be vocal about it and explain your decision. And if you have a platform, you may be able to influence others. And we can only hope that we're in the majority. And let me finish up. And it's even more incumbent on white people with privilege and comfort to whom Medicaid cuts aren't going to affect them. Education cuts, they can get their vouchers and send their kids to good schools. The taxes probably benefit. I haven't even looked. It probably benefits me, right? Like, I don't even fucking know. I don't want him in any way, shape, or form. But I don't even know but I know it hurts a boatload of people, and and in my mind, it's bad for the country. White people, it's even more incumbent on white people because we still have to get to the answer, Mark, is what is the message and who is the messenger that's going to get Black America to come out there on June 14th with white America? We got maybe a month to figure that out.
Not even. We got 3 weeks. It's the 20th of May. This thing's happening the 14th.
24.
Tick-tock, mofos. It's happening. All right, that's going to be the last word for today. We're going to get back together again Tuesday, tomorrow, and talk more about our strategy, more about some of the influencers we think that need to step up. LeBron, the king, if you're out there, I know you've invested properly. I think you can live off the interest going forward. I'm just saying, on the Brown side of things.
And hey, how about somebody under 30 years old? Somebody.
Exactly.
Somebody under 30 years old.
21, so
somebody.
LeBron's on the older side.
LeBron's, he's closer to us. I see the
All right, brother. Great talking with you.
Okay, always a pleasure. Talk to you tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
All right.